Hi everybody, so I recorded a couple of Thargoid interceptor kills yesterday and I am going to commentate them now. And kind of the point of this is to show how I fight an interceptor. Some questions have been coming up about the modified guardian weapons, which I like very much, and I want to show you how I use them and what I think is good about them and how they lead to kind of significantly different methods or styles, let's say styles of flying and fighting that are going to play to the advantages of both guns. So first of all, this is my Chieftain called Game Over Man. It is loaded with Guardian modified shard cannons. So the long range shard cannons. I've got, oh, there's a little tunnel lag here that scared me. I remember when I was making this. Okay, so we have 3 heat sink launchers and we have a neutralizer, which we shouldn't need fighting solo unless we make a mistake. And I don't believe we end up needing it in this fight. I'm flying without flak, and I always fly with flight assist off too, in case that comes up. Flight assist is off the whole time. We're flying shieldless because shields are bad for managing heat and managing your distributor pips. You want all the power you can get into your weapons and anything left over into your engines when you're doing your attack runs. And if you have to put anything into systems to keep your shields recharging, that is holding you back from fighting Thargoids. Their damage is all phasing anyway, so whatever. We're bringing repair limpets, a size 5 repair limpet, and a cargo rack for limpets. I have an AFMU on board, which I'll use quite a bit to keep the modules in good shape. And like I said, the guns are Salvation's shard cannons, long range shards, 2 mediums and 2 smalls. And then there are 2 small turreted long-range thermal vent beam lasers for managing heat. And I'm coming up on a Medusa. We're going to kill a Medusa today. And I'm by no means a Thargoid ace, but I've done solo Bassies and Medusas. So I guess I'll start talking about this. So right off the bat, we're going to let her scan us, and then I'll open up and I'll start firing heat sinks right away. Whenever the shard cannons produce a lot of heat and not very much distributor draw, but you want that weapon's capacitor to be as full as possible, because your weapons produce more heat when your capacitor is drained. So if you keep it full, you keep your heat lower. So we're going to manage that with heat sinks and putting full pips to weapons. And we want to stay under 20% heat so that she has a hard time hitting us. And there's my girl Sue with her beautiful whiskers. So we saw we fired a heat sink right away, and I have a size 2 and a size 1 on each trigger. So I am emptying the 5-round mag of one trigger and then moving on to the other one, and that gives each mag time to reload itself between, because we need to create sustained damage against the interceptor to out-damage its healing capabilities. And once we get it to 20% of its remaining hull, it'll exert the heart, at which point everything freezes as far as healing goes, and we try to kill the heart. And so as soon as I hear that heat sink eject, I will fire the next one, as long as I'm still firing. See right there, I fired one when I... Oh no, wait, I did it right, So there, I've just fired the next one as soon as she faced me again, because there's no sense in wasting a heat sink if she's not shooting at me. And I'm continuing to unload each mag at a time, switching to the other trigger when one empties, and I'm trying to stay close. The optimum range of the shard cannon is 1.5k. All right, so the heart's exerted now. We're gonna stay on target here and really try to just hit that heart. Try not to fire if you're outside of 1.5 kilometers. And I'm boosting. When she faces away from me, I'm boosting to try to catch back up to her. I might take a shot at the back here. I don't like to with the shards. There we go. She's going to face us again. So we're reversing a bit there to maintain distance. It's easier to hit, easier to aim when we're a little further away, of course. Gonna get it soon here. There we go. And now pips to weapon, or pips to engines and boost away. So the first heart is down. That took a lot of heat sinks because this is the hardest her hull will ever be. At the first heart, she's 100% health. So I'm gonna recharge that systems capacitor a bit, and I fired all but 3 of my heat sinks. And after this first heart, the interceptors will turn on their lightning weapon, and they get really excited about their lightning weapon, and they will chase you with their full speed for quite some time after this first heart. You see that glowing yellow? It really, really wants to shoot me with lightning, so I've got to keep the distance here. Now the Medusa is not a particularly fast interceptor, but the Chieftain's not a particularly fast ship, so right here I'm starting to synth heat sinks. Even though they're not empty, I know I'm going to need more than 3 for my next attack run, so I'm going to synth them anyway. And I didn't notice, I might have also probably checked my... Oop, taking a little bit of fire there, I got too close. She's chasing me with all of her might until she loses the yellow. So right there I'm checking my distance from her. She's out of my view, so I was just looking at the distance. Okay, so she's given up now. We're 4 kilometers away. At this point I can fire a repair limpet. And you saw me just fire the shard cannon again. That's because I switched back to the fire group that has my beam lasers in it, and I fired 1 round from the trigger that has the beam lasers so that they will reactivate. They're turreted, but I do need to start them each time I change fire groups or change targets. So I took fire, which means my synth of heat sinks was interrupted. I'll notice that in a second here and start it again. But right now we're just waiting for the shield to go down anyway, so this is the right time to repair. So there was the heat sinks again. I may have already checked my modules, but this would be a time to check your modules and restore them with the AFMU. Typically the module reinforcement will take the most damage, but I like to check to make sure my guns or something wasn't hit. And now I'm just orbiting, so I'm just boosting in a big circle around her, letting my beam lasers work. Well out of range of getting hit. I don't bring flak on any of my ships, so we're just going to avoid the swarm. Avoid their damage completely. So I'm just keeping her high in my view. Right now I'm allowing myself to drift backwards. There's something that can happen. The swarm was starting to get a little close, so I rotated around so the swarm is above the interceptor from my view. There, a couple of their rounds made it all the way over to me. So, I forgot what I was going to say. That's all right. It's like heat sinks are in good shape now. Yeah, we're ready for another attack run as soon as that shield drops. So we're just waiting for the shield to go down. The beam laser does work it down a little bit, but this is my resting and healing time. And that shield, I think I've noticed the shield is down. You can see on the... where normally you would see your target. I don't have a scanner, so I don't see an image of her, but I can see a blue sort of shield hit marker whenever the shield is up and I'm hitting with the beam laser. So I'm moving in again, fired a heat sink. We took some swarm damage there, but it's not that big a deal. But I'm trying to avoid boosting if I don't have to. And so we're doing a lot of down thrust and forward thrust, and you'll see we still have sort of a backwards momentum with respect to my ship's frame of reference, but you know, right there we had to boost again. So sometimes I'll shift pips into engines, and now we'll switch it back, and she's getting kind of close. So we're trying to slow down. Yeah, she almost got into lightning range there. And now what she's done is she's sort of tricked me into flying almost directly backwards. And I think I'm taking some fire here, but I'm making sure my heat stays very low. And we kept that fire on, and then second heart came out. So once again, we're trying to alternate our magazines so they have time to reload and we can keep constant fire, and there we go. Second one went down a little easier because she has less hull this time, and that pattern continues. So she's not going to chase me with the same speed as before because she's not got that super exciting lightning weapon she's not determined to use it anyway after the first heart. So from here out, she just uses it when I get too close, which is usually around 800 meters. Although there are reports that they sometimes get you a little further out than that. But we'll see. There's a heart a little bit later. I can't remember if it's this one, but there's I make a mistake at some point and almost get lightninged, and it completely throws off my orbit and actually scuttles the entire attack run. So talking about orbits, right now again we're just bleeding off the shield. If I needed heat sinks, which I just checked and I don't, there's at least 2 in each launcher. So right there I'm going to repair that module reinforcement, which took some damage. And now we're just waiting for the shield to bleed off again and keeping the swarm on the right side of the Thargoid as we go. So I'll boost a lot when I'm this far out. I've got full pips and engines at this point. 2 pips is enough to maintain the beam lasers if they're the only ones firing. So when we're attacking, the interceptors will sometimes trick you into flying almost directly backwards, which I mentioned, I think, on that last attack run. And that's when you can get hit, even if your heat is low, because you're essentially flying in a straight line from their perspective. So we're pretty much always through the entire fight down thrusting and maybe rocking from side to side. And if I'm trying to tighten the orbit, I will add forward thrust and then of course backward thrust if I end up getting too close. And if you get into a real jam, you might have to boost away, but that will definitely screw up your orbit and you'll lose your good firing range. For sure. So they're starting to shoot at me, so I'm going to boost again. We're down thrusting a lot right now, keeping her high in my view. I'm also trying to keep an eye on whenever I start an attack run where my, see right, yeah, I couldn't see it because we're out of range now, but if we get in within 3K, you'll probably see me take a look at how full each set of shard magazines are, because I'll want to start with whichever one has the lowest capacity. So I've got 4 and 4, so it doesn't matter. That means I screwed up my count at some point, because there should be 5. Ideally, there would be 5 in one of them, and I would empty the smaller one and then switch to the one with 5. So, so this will be Heart 3. I think this is the one I screw up. All right, that shield just went down. I saw it pop. If you don't notice it, like I said, you could see it on that sensor display in the lower left. The blue icon if you're hitting it with lasers. All right, so we're moving in. So right now I'm down thrusting and forward thrusting to shrink that orbit. I'm trying not to boost if I don't have to. Not only does that add heat, but it means I can't boost again for a little while. So we fired a heat sink and started emptying those magazines, and we're waiting on a reload. There we go, we'll start again. Trying to maintain that distance. So we're at optimum range right now, but she just turned away. So if she turns away to do her little reload business, I'll boost in, pips into engines for a moment to replenish that if I can. So we're a little too far away, but still hitting with all the pellets, so I decided to go for it here. Oh, but I boosted. See, I got impatient and I boosted, and now I got too close. She's gonna glow yellow, and I boosted again to try to make sure I didn't get hit with lightning. And at this point, my orbit is totally screwed, and I really should have bailed on the attack run and reset, but I got I got greedy and I boosted to try to gain range again. We're gonna start again. And by now she's healed probably all of the damage that I did to her, and now I only got a couple of shots, wasted a heat sink before she went away. Everything's going wrong with this attack run. We're trying again. I've got good range this time, but now I'm flying dead backwards, you can see by my engine trails, so I have to boost again to avoid the swarm, because they were lined up on me. That wasn't too bad, but right now we're falling out of range again. And watch those heat sinks. I think I'm down to 3. And we haven't exerted a heart, and we haven't kept very good constant fire on her. So now I just fired another one. We're down to 2 heat sinks. And she turned away. I didn't get full use out of that heat sink either, sort of badly timed. And now I'm going to have to fire another one because it's already spent. So when I get into 1.5, I'll probably fire another one and start firing again, because I'm really committed to this attack run when I should have bailed long ago. Yeah, here we go. So that was the second to last heat sink. We got good orbit now, and we'll try to stick it out, but it's not going to work. And there goes the last heat sink. I'm going to get an exertion here. right there. But I have no heat sinks. She's turning around to reload, which means I have to boost. And when she turns back around, so I'll throw a few bits of damage, but I know as soon as she turns around, I am not going to stick around because I am out of heat sinks. So I will take a boatload of damage if I stick around. I have to go. So we aborted that attack run, and I have 3 empty heat sink launchers, and I spent a bunch of ammo and only hit the heart with a couple of trigger pulls there. So maybe this is a good, so right now I'm going to go through, you're going to see me going through my modules. I'm going to synth heat sinks. I use the module panel for that as well because I think it's very fast. And I'm always in that module panel repairing with my AFMU. So I just refilled my systems capacitor, which is like half drained from all those heat sinks. And I'm going to go through, looks like everything stayed in good shape. I didn't take a lot of damage because I did bail at the right time, but that module reinforcement got hit. So what I think is good about the shard cannons and why I use them on my Chieftain, the shard cannons do almost 80 DPS. And that's at optimum, right? So if you're at 1.5k and you actually manage to hit with all the pellets, which isn't hard at all on an interceptor, that's very high damage per second. That's because the trigger, you know, you can fire them almost as fast as you can pull the trigger. And when you alternate triggers like this to let the magazines reload, I can keep really good constant fire. So especially for the purpose of exerting, the damage is fantastic if you can maintain good range. And I think it synergizes really well with the Chieftain. This is not overly fast, but the turn rate to straight line speed ratio is really good, really favorable. So I have an easy time of, it's not so boost dependent. I don't have to boost to keep a good turn rate all the time. So I'm able to sort of stay usually right where I need to be and just pile on that damage. Now when it comes time for the heart, I try to be a little more careful because it's harder to get all those pellets to hit the heart. But the damage is still really good, and you have a lot of, you can just keep pouring on trigger pulls and you can get it done. And in the second fight, a little after I kill this Medusa, we'll see what it looks like to use the Krait Phantom and plasma chargers, which is just a totally different kind of style of flying and applying damage to the Thargoid. All right, so I've repaired. I have synthed all my heat sinks. The shield never went up because I didn't kill a heart, so we're moving in. We're just going to reattempt this attack run now, fully recharged. So now I'm going to try to get in there boosting as little as possible. Sometimes I get impatient. Okay, here we go. So I just shifted pips to weapons, fired a heat sink, and began firing. That mag's empty, switch to the other one. We're down thrusting and forward thrusting, and she's reloading, so I'm going to boost here to catch up. And I messed up my count, and I see I got one round in each mag now, so we had to wait, but that's okay, she was turned around anyway. Come in again, fire another heat sink, pips back to weapons. And I messed up my count again, I can see now in the replay. It's okay. Reload, reload, reload. All right, get her, get her. Yeah, it was really good orbit here, and the heart's out. We already did some damage to it, so it should fall pretty quickly now. I'm gonna have to boost. She's reloading. So I got 5 and 2. Hopefully I noticed that. And she turns around. Heat sink comes out. And hit, 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 hit. Come on, there you go. And now pips to engines and boost away. Lots of down thrust. Okay, so that was pretty good. We recovered and went back and got heart number 3. So we're at 90%. Perfectly good time to throw on a repair limpet. Repair limpets heal your canopy as well, although if you don't feel like using a repair limpet, your AFMU can heal your canopy if you want. We're not going to need to do that in this fight. Probably the module reinforcement. Oh look, 99% damage. No big deal. And heat sinks. Looks like I've got 3, 2, and 2, so we're all good there. We'll be good to orbit and let my repair limpet work. Looks like one of the guns took 1% of damage, so I just repaired that and then re-enabled the gun. So now we can just orbit, avoid the swarm, and wait for the shield to go in. So see those blue right there on the where the sensor panel image would normally be? There's blue from my beam laser. So that's how we see that the shield is still up, if you can't visibly see it pop. So yeah, the shard cannons are good for sort of a constant fire situation. You can, being a split trigger like this, I can basically dual fire them where I'm alternating both triggers or squeezing them just as fast as I can at the same time. I might double heat sink for that if I end up doing it, but sometimes I'll do that on a Thargoid if we're trying to get a kill before the last heart, if we're trying to just out damage it before its shield goes up. That won't be possible on a Medusa because the armor hardness is just too much for me as a solo. But in a wing, sometimes I'll do that. So you can put up burst damage, but I think the real sweet spot for the shard cannon, besides being able to pour on that fast burst, is just that it's a constant fire. If you're doing this with dual triggers, it's sort of a constant fire weapon, which is what's needed sometimes to really do a good job exerting a heart. Just keep that position and keep that fire up. But you have to use heat sinks constantly. The heat load's very high, even if the distributor draw is low. Which is similar to a normal frag cannon, actually. It's just that we don't normally care this much about heat if we're fighting, you know, humans. So I'm checking that shield is still up, probably nervously verifying that I still have heat sinks by looking over there. I got two... Oh no, I lost my firing solution there for a second, but the turrets can hit from a wide variety of angles. When you turn too fast, sometimes they don't track as fast. But that's fine, we're very far away. Just keeping that swarm where I want it to be. It gets close and it'll start firing, but I'm fine where I am. And the shield's down, so we're moving in. I just move pips to weapons, fire a heat sink, and begin. So trying to down thrust and side thrust to avoid... we took a little damage there. We got tricked into flying kind of backwards for a minute there, but now we're in a good curve. Another heat sink went, heart exerted, and there's the reload from Thargoid, so we'll boost to catch up. Pips back to weapons for her to turn around. Oh, I shot at the back of it. Look at that. I don't usually get good damage from the back of the pedal with shards because they're less of a pinpoint weapon. So right there, we got too close again. She almost lightninged me. But the heart's exerted this time, so constant damage isn't necessary anymore. Any damage we do to the heart will be maintained, and there it was almost dead anyway. So pips to engines and boost away. So that was heart 4? Wait. No, that must have been heart 5. She has 4 petals left, so she has 2 hearts left because this is a Medusa. So it didn't take much damage that time. Looks like everything's in good shape. Little synth heat sinks. Once again, we're down to having only 1 heat sink in each launcher, so even though they're not empty and it's technically sort of a waste, I will synth heat sinks anyway because I may need more than 3 and I don't want to have to bail on the attack run because of that. Repair that module reinforcement. It looks like I'm not going to use a repair limpet this time. There's not truly a strong need to. My canopy is fine. I probably might have just checked my canopy there. Oh, I guess I was synthing more heat sinks. There's cockpit canopy. You see 96%, so I'll go ahead and repair that with the AFMU. I don't know if you can hear my dog in the background. I think I woke him up. Shield is still up, so we're still orbiting. So when fighting in a wing, you're not always so heatsink reliant as this, because the Thargoid attention is often on someone other than you, and if she's not shooting at you, there's no real reason to be spending your heat sinks. Just don't fire your shards so fast that you overheat and damage yourself. But for the sake of a solo kill like this, the focus is pretty well always on you, except when they're reloading, so you'll use heat sinks the entire time you're firing. And we'll see in the next fight how different it is with plasma chargers. And the difference in ship too, but I find that they pair well. The plasma chargers with the Phantom. You could set these up any way you want. This is just a preference that I've settled on. I found, I'll talk about this more later on, but I found that the plasma chargers by comparison are a bigger damage on a single hit. A full charge is about 80 deep damage, but it takes 1.7 seconds or 1.8 seconds, I think, to fully charge the plasma. Its distributor draw is quite high, but the heat load is lower than the shard. And I find that with the Phantom's larger distributor, the size 7 distributor, I can reliably fire them and be totally cooled by the laser in most cases. And we'll talk about that later, but that never got there with the Chieftain. The size 6 distributor gets drained just too much by using plasma, so I end up using heat sinks anyway, and then I felt that the shard cannons were just a way of pouring on that constant damage rather than a charge, fire, repeat scenario. So here we've exerted that heart again. That was a pretty good attack run. She's reloading, so we're coming in, boosting to catch back up. And we've got range back. She's going to turn around. She's going to lose that heart here, I think. Oops, she turned a little. Can I get it? It's kind of far away. No, she's at good range. All right, there you go. So that's the second to last heart. That was, 3 heat sinks were spent. So technically I didn't need to synth. I would have made it, but I would have been out at this point. So any mistake would have been a problem. So that's why I synthed heat sinks before. So we check our module damage. We're synthing heat sinks in the launcher that only had 1. For the same reasons. Module reinforcement only took 1 damage, so we're doing good. This ship uses Guardian module reinforcements. It has tons of them. The build I will have a link to in the video description, except for the weapons, of course, because Coriolis doesn't have the Guardian modified Guardian guns. So there again, I fired a repair limpet, and when I switched back to my weapons fire group, I shot 1 round out of the shard trigger that has the beam lasers on it in order to activate them. So at this point we have 1 more heart left. Right there I was checking how much ammo I have left. The shard cannons have 200 ammo maximum, which is more than Gauss, but less than plasma. And so sometimes on longer fights, like a solo Medusa is a pretty long fight, it's possible if I screwed up much more than this that I could run out and need to synth ammo, but I don't end up needing to do that this time. So I think I have like 30 and 40 or so rounds in the guns left, which should be plenty to exert and kill the last heart and then finish off the hull. Because at this point, remember that the hull strength goes down by a percentage each heart you kill. Essentially, you could think of it like the hearts are what heals them. And the Medusa has 7 hearts. In the back of my mind now, I'm panicking that I've got that heart number wrong. I think I might just Google it. It's funny, I would always know how many hearts a Medusa has until I'm recording myself. Medusa has 6 hearts. Okay, so that's why my count was wrong earlier. So this is the 6th heart we're gonna kill. It's the hydra that skips one. Hydra goes from 6 to 8. All right, the shield went down, and I'm flying almost directly backwards like an idiot, so I took some damage there. But we're feeling pretty good about everything right now. We're fine. So 6 hearts basically means that the hull is going to drop by, the total hull strength will drop by about a 1/6 each time you kill a heart. Or I guess a 7th because there's some remaining after the last heart. So divide the hull strength by 7 and that's how much you kill each time you destroy a heart. And so next time, in order to do 20% of the remaining hull damage, it'll be less each time. So they'll exert sooner and sooner. And there, we saw that exert. Remember when it took like 5 whole magazines to exert the first heart, and this one went in just 2. And boosting to catch up. Fill that capacitor and switch pips back to weapons. Oh, shooting at the back of the pedal again. And I think I'm going to boost again. Yeah, she got very far away there, and I would like to not lose that heart. I would like to finish it off and not have to re-exert it. And boosting again. Here we go. There it is. All right, so at this point it's just hull. I do not think that I can do enough damage to kill the Medusa before its shield goes up, and it went up pretty quick, so I just backed off. Don't worry about it. And we got one more shield to burn off, and then she's donezo. So once again, fired the repair limpet, switched fire groups, targeted the interceptor, and fired that round in order to reactivate the beam lasers again. Checking modules again. Just do this every time. There, we got 1% damage on that module reinforcement again, and no other damage. Usually that's how it's gonna go when you get into the pattern. You're managing to stay moving in that sort of downward corkscrew kind of direction. If the swarm's in the right place, if they're not missiling you, this whole fight goes off without any missiles, so those can be a problem. If the Thargoids shoot missiles at you, you need to bail that attack run, I think. I sometimes wait them out. Sometimes I carry a point defense, but the thing is, the point defense will shoot down the missiles, but it rarely will shoot all the missiles down effectively enough. So you still end up having to turn to avoid them, and at that point, like, why aren't you just bailing on the attack run? Because the missiles do a ton of damage to your external modules, namely your guns, and that takes a long time to repair. You certainly can't be attacking when you have guns that are malfunctioning. If they're below 80%, they'll start randomly malfunctioning, and that's bad news. You get into a cycle like that where you take module damage that you didn't want, you get kind of flustered. Pretty soon the interceptor's throwing a caustic missile at you and you accidentally get hit by that somehow, and then you're needing to overheat to burn off caustic, and that does even more damage to your guns because you're probably using your guns, especially you have shard cannons. That's the best way to overheat your ship, so that's what you're doing, is firing shard cannons. Those size 1 shard cannons have very little integrity, really, and they're going to melt really fast. It's a bad cycle to get into, so we did well this time, didn't get any missiles, but if that happens, that would be a good time to bail on an attack run and just repair and reassess. So that shield's got to be almost down by now. I just checked, it's still up. There it goes. So we just checked a magazine, we got 3 and 4. So if I'm smart, I'll start with the one with 3 in it. And I'm just trying to get in there without boosting. Boosting adds a lot of forward velocity, When I do boost, sometimes I will add a lot of directional thruster, sometimes even reverse thruster at the same time to bleed off that boost power. I do that a lot more in the Phantom, which is a little bit more boost dependent on turning. So here we're just damaging. She has no more healing capability, so it really doesn't matter how constant our damage is. Don't feel bad about flying away and coming back in if you need to at this point. Any damage you deal is permanent. And I'm being a lot less precious about my range too, because I know I have enough ammo. So I was firing even though I was a little bit far away. There you go.
Incoming mission critical message.
Fantastic. So that's Chieftain with shards and the Medusa, which is she's a tough cookie. She has a lot of armor. All right, next we'll switch to my Krait Phantom, which has plasma chargers. Okay, here we are. So this is my Phantom, only way to be sure. And I had a mission for a Basilisk, so sorry, this isn't going to be symmetrical. We're fighting now technically an easier interceptor. This interceptor has 5 hearts and a lot less armor. Weapons aren't as powerful, swarm is smaller, but it's faster. This is the fastest interceptor and is sometimes it's a big skill jump most of the time for people. The Phantom has significantly faster straight line speed than my Chieftain, than any Chieftain really. The build is pretty much the same stylistically, lots of module armor and hull armor. I'm using an AFMU and repair limpets, no shields. This has, I only brought 2 heatsink launchers this time. This actually has a point defense turret, which I don't think even comes into play in this fight, but it's there. That's more useful in conflict zones where scouts can sometimes fire missiles at you from who knows what direction, and it's kind of tricky. And then I have a neutralizer, which again, we're probably not going to use. So let's find the old girl. There she is. Night vision on, so I'm deploying my weapons. So this Phantom has 3 size 2 plasma chargers on one trigger, and then a class 3 turreted long-range beam laser on the other. So I'm going to charge my guns, start my laser, and start shooting right away here. And this, we charge up the shot and then release. So I'm keeping full pips and weapons. See how my distributor is really getting worn down a lot. And I finally started taking damage. I had some little bonus time in there at first because the interceptor kind of takes a while to start shooting at me. She has to get her swarm deployed and stuff. But I managed to exert that heart quickly, and then we could slow down the speed. And you see it only took 2 direct hits there from those plasma chargers to destroy that Basilisk heart. This is much more of a point damage thing, like a pinpoint damage thing, than the shard cannon was. It's not so much a spread area of effect. Like if you hit, you're going to deal massive damage, and that full charge, like I said, is 80 damage per size 2 plasma charger. That's pretty big. The distributor draw is high, but the heat isn't that high, and most of the time with this size 3 beam laser venting heat, if I can keep that weapons capacitor reasonably charged, which is pretty easy in the Phantom because it's a size 7 distributor, I can manage to not... You see, I didn't fire any heat sinks. They're still fully loaded heat sink launchers on that first heart. It's pretty great. And right now I'm watching my beam laser shoot at the Thargoid, and I'm watching its range because, once again, after that first heart is when they really charge you and try to hit you with the lightning. And the Basilisk is very fast, so you can screw this up. I'm flying more or less in a straight line with the Phantom because the Phantom is faster than the Basilisk. The Chieftain is not. If I was going to fight this interceptor in the Chieftain, I would not have gone in a straight line. I would have gone in as wide an orbit as I could to add distance. Just the same way those rabbits in my yard run away from my dog in a big circle. And they never catch those rabbits. Okay, but she's not glowing yellow anymore. She's given up on the lightning weapon for now. So now she's going to go normal speed, and we can do a nice calm orbit. Let my turreted beam laser cool me. Massive amount of cooling can come out of this laser. Plus the Phantom, just being kind of a larger ship, it itself just soaks more heat. And that shield's already down because this is a weaker interceptor. And also my beam laser's stronger in this ship, so it will drain faster. So at this point I can start working my way in. And we'll go in for Heart 2. At this point, the lightning is active, so now's when I'm going to start to worry about getting too close, possibly. Before the first heart, they won't ever use their lightning, and so you can get as close as you want. Alright, so I'm going backwards. Even though I'm down thrusting, the forward and reverse thrusters on any ship are your strongest thrusters. So if you're trying to create that orbit curve, down thrust alone is probably not going to do it. I find I don't get a strong curve until I add forward thrust to it. Right, so that was 3 blasts exerted the heart, and our heat's kind of high right now, but I'm not really paying attention. Oh, my distributor got drained there, so I fired a heat sink to lower my heat. I was shooting those plasmas so fast that I fully drained my weapons capacitor. So we're using heat sinks to make up for the fact that I drained that weapons capacitor. That'll happen sometimes solo. I'm rarely firing fast enough when I'm fighting in a wing to need that, but that's why we have 2 heat sink launchers anyway, so we're going to try to finish that heart off. There we go. So you see the stylistic differences, and the Phantom just flies totally different, right? It's sort of this graceful sweeping motions. You sort of have to plan your movements a little bit farther ahead because you can't change direction nearly as fast as the Chieftain can. But you get yourself into the right pattern. It's very fast, and you can use that speed to maintain your momentum and keep a good curve going, and you can be very, very hard to hit. The cooling is great because of the large beam laser and large distributor. And then the guns are also different. This would be a better like jousting situation rather than constant damage. We want to charge that and wait for the right time to pull the trigger. So the downside of the plasma, besides that increased distributor draw, which makes it work much better on this size 7 distributor than it does on the Chieftain, which has a size 6, is that their optimum range is lower. So this is the maximum damage from the plasma is going to happen at 1 kilometers instead of 1.5, which is the optimum range for both Gauss and the modified shards. So that means you really have to be close to be getting max damage. You'll see through this fight, I'm rarely actually that close, but I still try to not fire outside of that 1.5 range because damage fall off is a bitch. That said, plasma, you pull the trigger less because each individual shot is a burst rather than doing those sustained fire of emptying one mag and then emptying the other. And the plasma chargers have 300 rounds in a full gun, so you just have ammo for days. So hard to run out of ammo with plasma chargers. So I see from my sensor display that the shield is down, and I'm all repaired and ready to go. So we're going to move in. And she's moved away from me right away, so I boosted in to keep closer. And I'll boost again. The Phantom tends to be a little more boost dependent because the turn rate is lower. Sometimes I will boost just to get the turn rate. And when I'm doing that, I am definitely applying like a full reverse thrust unless I actually want to move forward. So right now I'm wanting to move forward because my range is too far. I'm out almost to 3. Yeah, there we go. So now we're going to move in closer. Once we get closer, I'm very cold, and so she's ignoring me a little bit, which is irritating when I'm trying to hurt her. But now we're in close. Now we can start exerting that heart for real. Now we needed to reload those guns. You could put these on 2 separate triggers just like I did with the other one, and you'd do well, but I find it's not strictly necessary, and this is sort of a simpler way of flying. So Maybe I'll do that at some point. I ought to get it on this next hit if I can actually land it. There we go. There goes heart number 3. So 2 more on a Basilisk. And I did deploy a heat sink there. That last run was pretty sloppy where I was totally draining my distributor. I probably should have noticed and used heat sinks more. This is a little bit of a... You're a little bit watching me forget how each ship flies since I'm switching so quick. So there we repaired our module reinforcement. In the Phantom, I am actually using a size 7 power plant with low emissions on it to keep the heat a little bit lower. I tested back and forth between, you could use a 6A power plant with armored and thermal spread, or a 7A power plant with low emissions, at which point I actually used double braced to try to make up for the loss in integrity. And the low emissions size 7 does have lower heat, but it's not a huge amount. But I just went for that for the sake of kind of any slight lowering in heat allows me to use less heat sinks, which is sort of the way I tend to fly this ship, as you can see. So that means that my power output is lower, and so I actually swapped 2 of my module reinforcements, are standard ones, instead of Guardian. The Guardian use a small amount of power, so this is, I threaded that needle a little bit. There's 1 Guardian reinforcement and 2 regulars. And that gets me to the point where only my cargo scoop turns off when I deploy my weapons. So that's nice. It's nice to not have your FSD turn off. And there's the shield just popped. Now the swarm's not in the right spot, so I'm boosting down away from them before moving in. And again. So we can pre-charge the guns here, which is nice because then my distributor will be fully recharged by the time I get in there. So the funny thing about these is when you squeeze the trigger to charge them, your distributor draw happens, but the heat doesn't dump into your ship until you fire. So in a situation like that, you can draw down your distributor and then let it fill back up, and then by the time the guns fire to actually add the heat to your ship, your distributor's full and you don't add hardly any heat to your ship. And see, it's without using any heat sinks. Oh, there it got up to 21 for a second. My distributor was pretty low. If she starts hitting me, I'll probably fire a heat sink here, but we're back down to 1%, and there we go, we got it. And we did fire a heat sink. It's fine. You shouldn't feel bad about using heat sinks. It's really in a wing where I can get away with not using any sometimes. Because of that burst damage, I'm often firing 1 or 2 or 3 shots with the plasmas, and then she's twisted one way or the other to face a wingmate, and my usable part of my attack run is kind of over anyway, and I have to reset. But in solo, when you can maintain, that's when you will use some heat sinks on this build. What do we got? No damage. So that's the thing. Plasma, sort of a stronger burst per trigger pull. If you land the shot, you get all that damage, and it's fantastic. With the, but you got to maintain a tighter range to get optimum damage. With the shards, you have a bit longer range at 1.5k, but it's sort of a spread effect. So exerting is fantastic, and you can maintain that constant damage with constant trigger pulls. And you can turn on burst damage when you need to by rapid firing them and using lots of heat sinks in that case. But yeah, just sort of different styles. It's harder to do a really strong burst damage, I think, with the plasma, but each individual shot is very strong, so it kind of evens out. There's a little bit of give and take there. With the plasmas, I find Cyclops are really hard because these 3 size 2 plasmas, a single shot on the last 2 hearts is enough to throw up an emergency shield on Cyclops, even by myself. So the emergency shield is if you put on too much damage too fast to an interceptor, it'll put up a second shield. even if a heart hasn't exerted or hasn't been killed. And I ended up getting into these fights with Cyclops in this ship where they were like invincible, because I would come in to exert the heart, and my first shot, sure, it would exert the heart, well, like that, it just did it to the Basilisk. The first shot will exert a heart on a Cyclops, but it would also throw up an emergency shield, and then I couldn't hit the heart. So to manage that, you could do split triggers so that you can only, you have one trigger that maybe only fires one gun, and use that for exerting, and only throw your full weight at it when you're actually going to hit the heart, or just back off your range. So they will hit up to 3 kilometers. Optimum damage is 1 kilometer. So if you move out to 1.5 or 2 usually, you're reducing your damage output quite a bit, and that would be a good way to attack a Cyclops that is throwing up an emergency shield. And that heart retracted because we were too far away, so I need to get in closer to finish it off. So because I'm holding that trigger down, I'm not wanting to move my thumb to change pips, but I really could have moved pips into engines to get closer to her faster, but we're going to get it here. No, that was a miss. Oh, she turned away. I do more often with the plasmas, I'll shoot at the back of the pedal if I have a good shot. Oh my gosh, it pulled it back again. All right, we'll re-exert it here. There we go. At this point, I'm probably getting fed up and wanting her to end. That looked like maybe only one of them hit. Oh, you know what I haven't mentioned yet is I'm using trailing gun sights here. I kind of meant to say that right at the beginning of the video, but trailing gun sights works really well for these Guardian modified, Salvation modified Guardian guns, because their projectile speed is 6,000 meters per second. You can use this trailing gun sight, and then I'm not using oh my gosh, it retracted again. This is terrible. I'm not maintaining close enough distance and not hitting it. Really screwing up here. There we go. So yeah, the trailing gun sight, which is really silly when you're using human weapons because their shot speeds are often much slower. With the trailing gun sight, your reticle there, that X that you can see on my screen now, that's showing where my rounds will land, considering my target's range from me and relative velocity, right? So that you'll see that move around as I thrust left and right. It'll slide left and right, showing me where my shots will land. So now, even without a scanner and targeting the individual heart, I can just put that dot right onto the heart, and that is where they will land. And obviously, I only do that when I'm using these Salvation Guardian guns. Because human weapons firing much slower, like plasma or frag cannons especially, your reticle would be off your screen a lot of the time. Whereas with leading reticles, you just aim at the reticle, so it's always on your screen. You just turn to where it is and fire. So with this, you see it's down in the lower left. That I'm placing that dot on the Thargoid where I want it to land and releasing the trigger. And the same thing was true with the shards. And I am just using my plasma chargers on the shield to wear it down faster, because I don't care about ammo. You see, I still have 160 rounds left. This thing has tons of ammo, and this Thargoid doesn't have enough health to really make too much of a dent in my ammo capacity. And there she's done. No sense in waiting out that last heart if I don't have ammo problems and I don't have anything I need to repair. So there we go. There's the Basilisk, and the kind of totally different flight style of using a Phantom with plasma chargers. So we could interchange these with different ships. I just found that the high distributor draw of the plasma chargers is much better suited to the larger distributor in the Krait. So that's my preference of how I lay them out. All right, thanks for watching. I hope this explains these Guardian guns, these modified Guardian guns a little better and gives people an idea of what they might want to unlock and what they might want to use them for. Have a great day.